advice? You've been ignoring good advice your whole life. Welcome to Shitty Life Advice. Hello, and welcome to episode 11 of Shitty Life Advice. Please close in on me. Thank you. Hello, and welcome to episode 11 on Shitty Life Advice. My name is Sam Lamont. I am the host of Shitty Life Advice, and I give a shit. I am joined to my right by two of my closest friends and smart people, MC McDonald and Tracy Benjamin. Could you please introduce yourself?
I am MC McDonald, PhD trauma researcher, life coach, and author, and this is Tracy.
Hello, I am Tracy. I am a food blogger, a stylist, a smartass, and your friend.
And a mom.
And a mom.
I'm also a dad. I'm sure you knew that loneliness, today's topic, is a health crisis here in our country, United States of America, rivaling obesity and smoking. I'm sure you knew that. But the premise of the show, for those of you who are new, the premise is pretty simple. I am going to be giving shitty life advice at some point. My friends will be giving good life advice at some point. I will not be able to help, but also try and give my own good advice. We'll try to keep it simple. When the glasses are on, generally do not take me seriously for now. But anyway, today's episode is on loneliness. MC, would you cue us up with the loneliness state of the world?
It is an epidemic, as you said, that rivals smoking, obesity. And I want us to understand, because I think we can say those scary words, but I want us to understand why. Why is it so detrimental and why is it so dangerous? And it's because it activates the stress response system in your body. So when you are lonely, especially if you're lonely for a longer period of time, your body thinks you are literally in mortal danger. And so it starts responding as if you are at war. And that's really problematic for all of the systems in your body and can be really crushing. So I think sometimes we talk about loneliness as this emotion we come in and out of that we can like just shake off, but it's really a health concern. And there's tons of hope here because there are a lot of things we can do, even when we can't really change our life circumstances, to mitigate the stress response and also feel less lonely.
Wow. How lonely are we all today? Let's do a little check-in. Tracy, how lonely are you?
Well, I feel less lonely because I'm on a couch with you and I'm around my friends. I don't feel lonely today.
Okay. MC?
Same? Yeah, I never feel lonely around you guys.
Never.
How about just like in general?
In life?
General tone of loneliness these days.
I've been lonelier the last like couple weeks than I am comfortable with, for sure.
I've been feeling some loneliness too.
Yeah, sucks.
You're good?
I don't know. I'm an introvert, so I like being alone.
I'm going to go up against that later.
Okay.
What about you? You said you're feeling more?
Well, luckily now we have Reese back in the studio, my best friend and business partner. So life is much better. And next week you can expect another kind of pre-recorded segments of the show, which are some of my favorite to produce. But last week it was a good reminder. Last week coming back to the show, or coming back to the office with Reese taking a much needed vacation, it was a great, like, you create new baselines so quickly. Mm-hmm. And when you create that new baseline, you feel like, this is it. This is me now. And then when you're reminded of that past state, like what it was for me to work here before Reese, or I had a bad depressive episode 2 weeks ago, which was like the first in a year and a half.
That was great.
I've had like a really good stretch of time.
Yeah.
To be reminded is always kind of like, whoa.
Yeah,
like
wake up call.
Yeah, I'm not an evolved being. Mm-hmm. I can still experience these things. So it is very nice. This morning was a love fest in here, having Reese back in the studio. And if you can find a way to work with your friends, it is challenging and rewarding.
I'm so happy to be back.
Yay.
Happy to have you back. Okay, so we don't have questions today.
No.
No questions. We are working. Oh my gosh. Sorry. We have to interrupt in the live chat right now. Lindsay Malone. Lindsay, do you see what I'm fiddling in? Reese, close in on me. Look what I got here. Yes.
Mine's in my pocket.
Yes. Lindsay, thank you for our gift so much. She mailed us a gift. And if you would like to mail us a letter as well, you can mail it too. We're trying out new systems today. The mail thing. Look at it. There's our address.
You've got mail.
You've got mail. One of the things that we do have today is we asked people on Instagram, what was the prompt exactly?
The most embarrassing thing you've done in like a, state of loneliness to combat your terrible feelings.
Some funny
Yeah.
anecdotes.
So we'll be listening and responding to some of those, and we're figuring out things each week of how to run the show. Eventually, one day, I'll have a little cheat sheet of what clips are playing. But for now, we're just going to be at the whim of Reese. Reese, will you set us up with one of the first clips here?
Wheel of Fortune.
Oh, no. We're not.
Are we ungrounded?
Are we ungrounded? No, Reese, let's go to one of the clips. Let's go to one of the clips.
We're plenty ungrounded already.
I am plenty ungrounded. Thank you. But,
Plenty.
Hi, this message is for Sam. I'm Chris, and the most embarrassing thing I've done out of loneliness lately is hop back on Bumble. The backstory is that I'm a poly person, and I have a couple open dating relationships, but either, we're traveling, working, schedules are different. I just need more connection than I have access to. So I thought I would go and use the tool that at least lets the ladies talk first. But I'm sad to say that even at 34 years old, dating in the pool of like fully grown men, the best I've found is a bunch of 36-year-olds trying to flirt about how they're workaholics and a set of identical twins who they're using different photos, but they're using lots of photos of themselves with each other, including like the birthday moment of blowing out candles on a cake together.
I thought it would be a different birthday moment.
Bio. So yeah, it's just been a weird little adventure trying to validate my own needs and use the tools of the internet, but also finding all these 36-year-old men who are out there like, oh, I'm so hard to get a hold of, chase me, ha ha ha. Oh no, not saying I don't want to meet up, I just am literally not available for a sushi date until April or May.
Work, bro.
Yeah.
And at this point, I am trying to make sure that I don't chase them, because that would be the most embarrassing thing of all.
This would be a perfect example, a time to like really rip into shitty life advice, but I'm just not in it today. So let's talk about it.
Yeah.
36 is such a specific age.
I know, I was going to say the same thing. Why?
Why? Why
What is
36?
Bumble like? I'm not single.
I'm on
Bumble's
Bumble
awful.
BFF, which is
What's
terrible.
that mean?
So Bumble has a sort of separate platform for if you're looking for just friends.
Oh.
And so you can put up your profile and what you want to do.
Why would you need to look for friends now?
Well, I haven't been on it in a long
Okay.
time, but I had
Okay.
just moved here a couple of years ago and didn't know anybody, like at all. And so I was looking for people, and swiping for friends is really weird.
Yeah, what's that like?
Really weird. Because I guess,
It doesn't matter. Like, looks don't matter.
looks don't matter, but like you want to look for shared interests and like common, like, I guess, values. It seems like a weird thing to say. And then you meet up, and it's like it was just really hard to find anybody that you like align with.
I've never met a couple that met on Bumble.
Oh, really?
Not once.
You
no.
think it's like a doomed app?
I've met a few from Tinder, but it didn't start with those intentions.
Right.
Like, I don't think Tinder generally starts with
No.
those intentions. And Hinge seems to kill it. I've met a lot of couples from Hinge.
Yeah.
What makes Hinge different?
The guys can initiate, like
Oh,
life
it's-
intended.
Oh yeah, so Bumble, the thing is you can't.
It's female?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And
Okay.
like in theory, it's great, but 100 years or however long our culture, thousands maybe, of men being the initiators have left us with like the worst beginnings of any social interaction one could ever imagine.
So I wonder if the flirting about work is the hey, I'm a provider,
Oh.
Probably.
because it just made me think of that when you were thinking of like 1,000 years ago. You would have to establish yourself in a group as a provider in order to be a good potential mate. So,
Or
wonder
I
if
don't
that's
have a
why.
lot of time for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the absolute least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alone as a poly person too is like, That's an interesting one.
What do you mean?
Why?
Because you can date however many people you'd like, but you still feel alone. And it sounds like the people that she was with are busy, too busy for her. Then these Bumble people are too busy for her.
Yeah.
It's almost like, oh shit, where are my glasses? It's almost like everybody's too busy for you. And nobody wants to give you their precious time because you're just not worth it. That was our first shitty life advice of the day before the glasses went on.
I can connect that to loneliness. So you
Connect.
said that you said that maybe the reason you can't find anyone on Bumble is because everyone's too busy for you because you don't have value. When you're lonely and you're in that chronic stress response, over time you come to lose your sense of self and self-value. And so one of the key ways to get out of loneliness is actually to look at your relationship with yourself, which sounds counterintuitive because if you're already alone, why would you spend any more time in solitude? But if you spend some time actually reflecting on things that you love and reconnecting with those things, and this can reestablish your sense of self-respect, which then in turn makes it easier for you to connect with other people.
Does it change the way that you operate?
What do you mean?
Like, can people sense that you're lonely when you're...
Well, the weird thing is you become, and you can think about this from evolutionary biology, when you're alone and you have that stress response and you're in danger, you start to become hyper critical of other people and less trusting. And so that's going to come out in your dynamic, and you're also going to reach out less.
Is it kind of like, does it trigger anxious attachment then?
I think it triggers like a primal anxiety. I think that could show up in an anxious attachment or actually avoidant, because if you don't trust people, you'll connect and then not believe that they really want to connect with you and then pull away. And yeah.
Wow.
All right, Reese, let's go to
Bumble.
the next clip.
Bumble.
When I was in high school, I was a super lonely kid, and I had a younger sister, and she was really social and popular. And for about a year and a half, I hung out with her and all of her friends during any free time that I had. And I had sworn them all to secrecy, and every time we hung out, I made them re-swear to secrecy that nobody would find out that I hung out with them. But secretly, I didn't actually even want to find friends in my age group because I loved hanging out with them so much.
Oh,
Was
That's
it
cute.
younger sister?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
that's
really
super
cute.
cute.
That's cute.
I hung out with my brothers and his friends.
Yeah, me too. Older or younger?
They're older.
Yeah.
I was smart ass. They loved me.
I bet. Yeah.
Next clip. No comment on that one.
No comment?
No comment?
No,
Wait,
that,
no, I think this is super important because we
that
have.
was just endearing. I like it. Next, I'm the pace.
The loneliest thing, or excuse me, the thing I've done to not feel lonely, I would say, as I already told Sam responding to this,
I love this one.
2 years ago, I left my marriage and filed for divorce. We moved out of our home. We each went our separate ways and in our separate apartments, and that was really lonely for me. It was like, I mean, it's just like a death.
Yeah, it is a death.
Yeah.
Awkward silence. So in order to cope, I guess I just felt all my feelings as they came. And one day I was feeling really lonely, and
Don't ever do that. Don't ever feel your feelings.
went into his apartment on the other side of town when I knew he was not there. And I laid down in my bed.
Oh,
The
I
bed we'd
cry.
gotten as a wedding gift that was made for us. And I just laid there to feel like I could feel like I was back in that life again.
Is that not the most beautiful scene?
Fucking tragic.
Wow.
That's like ready for a movie.
It is. You know what I was thinking is the scene in The Great Gatsby.
Haven't seen it.
There's
The one
a
with
there's
Leonardo DiCaprio.
no the old one, the embarrassing old one. There's a scene
Damn.
that's in the book that's in all the movies where she goes into his closet and there's all these shirts and she's like pulling the shirts down and smelling the shirts because they still smell like him. And in the old movie, I don't know what year
I've
this
done
was.
that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Puffin.
Then it was just really dramatic and hilarious because it was overacted. But yeah, but that's yeah.
The image of sneaking into your ex's house while you know they're not there
to lie in your marital bed.
To lie back in your marital bed is so beautiful to me. I know it's probably like a little bit on the creepy scale too.
I don't.
A little bit, but
I mean, the breaking and entering, maybe. Right? We want to stay away from that. But there's something really like, again, primal about that. Like the feel of the other person, the memory of the feel, the smell of them. Like that's
It's like muscle memory.
yeah.
breakups are so hard,
So hard.
and so to find those moments of reprieve, to find those moments where, for a moment, you're not starting over. You're not completely broken up. You are back in that old life. It's just such a beautiful
I'm crying. You have to
image.
stop.
No.
Yeah?
Yeah. Okay.
Close up.
No.
Close up.
Reese, don't do it.
Don't cry.
Okay. It's a beautiful story.
All right, let's go to the next clip.
Once I was so lonely that I was living in New York at the time, and I was so lonely and I could not face the idea of a weekend alone. And so I went downstairs and there was a bodega underneath my apartment building, and I started chatting with the bodega owner, who was like at least 30 years older than me, and ended up going back to his house and sleeping with him. And the walk of shame was the worst ever.
Whoa, what's wrong with sleeping with the bodega owner?
The 30-year age.
Yeah, 30
Oh, is
is,
that mentioned?
Yeah, 30
Yeah.
is a
Oh, I
big
missed that.
diff.
Yeah, that's a big diff.
16 is my largest. Question is, did they shut down the bodega?
Yeah.
Did they shut down the bodega?
Or did it she said she went back home with him.
Did she wait until closing?
I don't know.
It's like, hey, when
when
you done hawking toothpaste?
it's on.
Or what do
I
you buy at
wonder if she
bodegas?
went
Bananas.
back.
Literally everything.
Bananas.
But everything is twice as expensive as it should be.
Wow.
I think like the impulse to reach for sex, again, goes back to this idea of like companionship and wanting, a warm body next to you because you will feel more safe. That goes back to our roots, and it's also, that's a great way to complete the stress cycle. So I think even though she obviously has judgment about this, that's actually kind of a healthy coping mechanism as long as you're safe.
To have sex after a breakup, it can very easily spiral out of control.
What do you mean?
Well, it can become a way to just like
Oh,
stay
yeah.
numb, stay distracted. But to have intentional, beautiful, connected sex with somebody who knows that you're not available can be that's like a healer role. Like I feel like during breakups of mine, I've had healers come into my life and like be intimate with me, be affectionate with me when I couldn't reciprocate any of that. So as long as it's communicated,
Right.
what's going on, it can be one of the beautiful moments in life. I think.
This sounds like it was a little compulsive, right? Like she was
This one sounds like, compulsive. Always good to think about these things. 30-year age gap.
Also, like the
It's
bodega
very-
is downstairs, right? So this has to be a
That's-
continued
yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
I think they touched on something that I have a problem with loneliness. I end up eating my feelings and I eat the loneliness. So I would be at the bodega getting chips
Yeah.
and maybe like donuts or something.
Do you want to know why that works?
Tell me.
Because when your belly is full, so the vagal nerve has the nerve ending, the most nerve endings in two
We're going to
spots.
practice something. Repeat what you're explaining and then explain it to the camera. This is for clips, everyone.
Clips.
We're learning how to TV or internet.
So this is why eating and being full when you're lonely feels good. And it's actually you're reaching for it as an adaptation, and it's kind of a brilliant one, even though it might be one that doesn't serve you. So when you are really full, so the vagus nerve, which controls the parasympathetic nervous response, which is the rest and digest, the calm response that counters the threat response, has nerve endings in two areas. It has the most nerve endings in two areas, right in front of your belly and in the back of your throat. And so when you eat and you're really full, you're pressing against the vagus nerve, which then turns on the parasympathetic nervous response and makes you feel calm.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think when we understand our adaptations as brilliant, they are brilliant. Even when they don't serve us, they're brilliant. Then we can look at them without shame and be like, okay, what I am doing makes sense and it doesn't serve me. So what do I want to do instead?
So as somebody who also eats their feelings, what's a compromise? Is it eating? Because you want...
Is it drinking?
For me, I want to feel full. And so that's kind of, with my food stuff, that's the one thing that I'm really struggling with is like a healthy portion that will feel full in 10 minutes is not soothing to me. In the,
Like you want to be full right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I'm uncomfortable, I also want to eat. And when I'm lonely, I want to eat. It's like a very self-soothing activity that I'm trying to make work with, like what you're saying, like understand the brilliance and then make it work. Like what's the...
So it's cool because you see that you actually get a lot of data by looking at the coping mechanisms that you reach for that don't work for you.
Fried food.
So fried food. So even just the feeling of being being full. So you want stimulation of the vagal nerve. And so you can do that with breathing exercises. You can do that with singing. You can do that with chanting. You can do that with gargling. And you can also complete the stress cycle in other ways that will also kind of burn off some of the stress hormones that are getting in the way of you feeling, that are kind of contributing to this idea of like, I need to feel full right now, I'm uncomfortable. So if you think of like your coping mechanisms like a toolbox, you just have the one tool in there right now. It's the feeling of fullness. You want to have, 50 tools and be using them regularly so that sometimes you'll reach for eating, but it won't be the only one.
One of the things I learned from a evolutionary psychologist that I use all the time when I'm going into a nerve-wracking situation is chewing gum.
Yes. Yep.
Because as he put it, he said, when you eat, it signals to your body that you're not in danger.
Yep.
Because nobody in nature, no creature in nature is going to eat if they're an imminent threat. Like eating is what you do when you're safe. And so that chewing can signal to, so whenever I'm about to go on a talk or anything, I'll chew gum.
Yep.
Is that maybe part of the self-soothing when we feel bad feelings, why we want to be chewing? It's like, I'm okay because there's clearly no lions in the bush.
Yes, it's also why we fidget. So it's accomplishing two things. It's giving the stress hormone something to do. So you're chewing, so your stress hormones have an action. Part of what stress hormones are doing are trying to make your muscles go. So when you give your muscles something to do, then it will, it burns off, it gives the stress hormone something to do. And so fidgeting, which I get called out for sometimes, does the same thing.
Loneliness is a funny one. The word does not represent the feeling. Right? Like lonely sounds like a Disney character. Like, hi, I'm lonely. Do you feel sad? Give me a hug.
Yeah.
While loneliness is actually like excruciating. And like, it's one of the, like, even when we were writing the description to the episode, like, or when I was writing it, like, oh, loneliness. It's like, that sounds so ridiculous compared to the agony that, like, when you are in true loneliness, you wouldn't even describe it as loneliness. Like, you would be like, I am doomed.
Yep.
I will never be okay again. Like, the word does not do the feeling justice ever. Why does it hurt so bad to be alone?
That's such a great point that you're making. Because
such a great point?
Two things. I think it's a great point that you're saying that loneliness is a word that we make silly. Like, it's got a Disney princess kind of quality to it because it actually is agony. And it is, as we were talking about, it causes a very real response in the body. It's not a frivolous thing. And the second thing is that loneliness we think of as manifesting in one way, which is, what would you guess? How would you guess loneliness would manifest if you could slap an emotion to it?
Oh, of like the basic six?
Yeah.
Fear.
Okay.
Maybe?
Yeah. Fear, depression, but it shows up, it manifests in all these different ways. And actually one of them is rage. And we don't talk about that a lot, but a lot of times, especially if someone has been lonely chronically, it transmutes into rage and irritability.
Why?
Because again, from the evolutionary perspective, your body thinks it's in danger. And so everything in your perception is a potential threat. And so the healthy response to that then is to be, but we don't see that.
Rage monster.
Right. And so we don't think the problem is loneliness. We think, oh, you have an anger problem, or you have a mood disorder, or you have, which may be true separate from that, but yeah.
Wow. Why does it hurt so bad?
Because the body thinks that we are in danger. And so it's creating a stress response, which increases inflammation. which is also the reason that it causes so many problems long term. So when you have inflammation in the body over a course of time, all of your systems erode.
I was reading your notes in today's episode of things that you were possibly going to talk about.
Yeah.
And the thing that struck out to me the most was how physically dangerous loneliness is. Can you touch on that a bit? Can we just go there?
Yeah, for sure. So it's physically dangerous because it sort of like starts and then spirals. And so you have loneliness is dangerous because it requires, it starts off this stress response. And then when you stay in it, stress response is supposed to be a quick blast of stress hormones and then relaxation. When you're chronically in a stress response, you have inflammation and stress hormones coursing through your body nonstop. And that's not what we were designed for. And so over time, not a long time, all of your systems fry, your cardiovascular system, your metabolic system, your intestinal system. You can't concentrate. And then what happens when you have all those symptoms is that you tend to isolate. And that is also because your body's in the stress response, so everything feels threatening. So you isolate away from that threat to try to get yourself back down to baseline. But what you actually need is connection to get back to baseline.
In the comments now, how do you get back to baseline when you're feeling lonely? What's your self-regulating behavior? I would love to know. One of the things that I want to talk about is that we are social animals. So when I am totally turning on extroverted, introverted. I think that they were once useful words that are becoming like personality types where people are like, I'm an extrovert or I'm an introvert. Extroverts never say they're extroverted. They just take over shit.
Yeah.
Right? So extroverts they don't ever need to self-label.
They take their own quarter.
It's like it's abundantly clear who the extrovert is in the room.
Yep.
But one of the things that I think happens is like we're social animals. We're designed to be in like probably hunter-gatherer kind of situations. You do not get to be a pure solitude animal. Like in those spaces, like when you look at wild horse herds, which is my only experience of looking at any herd animal behaving naturally, there will be horses that just need more space, but they're still part of the herd. So the whole idea that like, and I think this is more like a brand of the introvert of like, oh, I don't like people. I don't want to be around people. I think it's the worst possible conception of an introvert we could give to people like me who are introverted.
Totally.
Well, people also assume that you're socially awkward if you're an introvert too.
Yeah.
And
Like
I
you
don't
have no
like that
skill.
label.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my rebuttal would be if you don't like people, you're not around the right people. Right? Like if you aren't like, I don't like being around certain people. And so there are pockets of humans that are considered like very normal pockets, like let's say footballers, like people who are super into football. That will drive me insane. And I will have no interest in it and I will want to go back to the cave. But when I'm making art with you and we're both quietly drawing next to each other, that is not introverting.
Right.
And it is also what I've noticed. Like through building this community, all of you, Reese, you two, Amanda and Katie, newer additions, although Amanda and I have known each other for years. We've just been finding a good excuse to hang out, and here we are. This has led to me not needing antidepressants anymore, not needing well, I guess it was prescribed as an antidepressant, but it was an antipsychotic.
Mood regulator.
Mood regulator. And I am having to adjust the mood scale on my mood tracker because it was just
Oh, damn.
there was no way to differentiate like really good from really good because it was all mostly really good. So there's like one dip a month.
Yeah.
And that's all thanks to people. That is after years of me considering myself an introvert, identifying with an introvert and not seeking out people. What happened is I saw responses from somebody. It was like a meta-analysis of Big Five data. And it was basically like, oh, the higher you scale on the extroversion of the Big Five scale, the higher you self-rate your happiness. And I thought, oh, there's something to this. So I started going to pubs after work. I don't drink just to be around people.
Yeah.
I started calling people. I don't like calling people. That's not an activity that I like. What I want to do is I want to listen to a lecture on YouTube or a book on tape and just be in my own space.
Where somebody's talking at you.
Or somebody's talking at me and I don't really have to engage. But now, like when I have an hour-long drive, I call somebody. There's an hour-long talk or video or something that I want to watch more than that. But doing these things that involve other humans and connecting with other humans has literally changed my life. As somebody who used to think of themselves as an introvert, it has changed the way I feel day to day.
This is huge. And I think that's number one. I think that the language around introversion and extroversion has become dangerous. And we should talk about that. And I think that the other thing relating back to loneliness is that we miss the signs of loneliness because we see ourselves as anxious or depressed or needing SSRIs. And what we're missing out is that if we fill out, I have this idea of concentric circles of people in your lives. If you fill out those concentric circles with different kinds of connection, you beat back the loneliness and likely the symptoms. And so you can then experiment with changing your medication or what your lifestyle is like. I think that's huge. That's great that you had that response.
I think what it comes down to is connection, because I hate small talk. I hate talking about, the weather. And when I'm around you guys, we could talk about anything. We get real deep in our conversations. So I just feel like when I'm around some other moms who are maybe extroverted and I don't play the same games that they do, it's like nails on a chalkboard. It's really hard for me to feel comfortable and safe in that connection when I can't relate to them. So it's really about like finding the people that bring out the best in you and make you feel safe.
Yeah, that container of safety. I think, okay, so picture like concentric circles, right?
Okay.
What you just described is the core of your connection. You critically need a group of people, could be 4 people. It doesn't have to be 50 people that you can relate to on a deep level. And then another circle outside of that might be people that you connect with regularly, but not as deeply. So people in a yoga studio, people at the pub, people who are just kind of in your life. And then you can go further out to coworkers, people who you kind of have to be around and chat with, but you don't have deep connections with. And then people, you could go further out. I think sometimes we think everyone needs to be in the core inner circle, and we don't realize that we actually need connections on all of those levels. So you need a core inner circle, you need some acquaintances, you need some groups that are less intense, because let's say like if Reese is away, he doesn't get to connect with us for 2 weeks or whatever. And then he loses all of his connection or 90% of his connection. But if he has other connections, other circles that are met during that time, then he's more stable and loneliness will be less likely. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
One of the funny things that happened to me, which I'm now realizing real time, is I used to have a job. Reese and I actually met at this job, a place formerly known as Tech Shop. Doesn't exist anymore. Reese and I met there, and at that job, I got all of my social interaction. I loved many of my coworkers. I loved working there, and I would come home and could totally just relax. I could totally just do Sam time. What happened is when I switched to podcasting, because originally I was not with Reese, I was on my own, I ended up in a huge spiral and a huge depression. And one of the things that I think happened is I didn't replace that social interaction that came from Tech Shop back in the day.
Totally.
This podcast and being here has changed my life.
Me too.
I work by myself. I'm at home all the time, and it's very lonely not having a coworker. And so showing up here and then having connections with everybody and like having a reason to get dressed.
Yeah, totally.
It like makes a huge difference in my mental health, you know?
Funny enough, that's why the show is a live stream format. Is I fell in love with live streamers through loneliness.
Oh, wow.
And so, what do you call it? Para relationships? No, is that what it's called?
Parasocial relationships.
Parasocial relationships. And so I found a couple live streamers, and these people are workaholics. They would live stream every day at a certain time. And I noticed feeling more connected because it was happening live, because I could read comments. And so although it would be fun to do a show where we pre-record everything and get it all exactly right, the fact that there is a comment here that I'm looking at right now, hello D, hello Andrea, hello Krista, is why I fell in love with the format. And I created this show. I had 15 weeks. I was working with a group of people who also had 15 weeks. We were like in a challenge, and we were going to work towards a goal in those 15 weeks. And my goal was to build a regular hangout that was also, and that's the show. Ta-da. It's an excuse for all of us to spend time together.
Can we talk about parasocial relationships for a second?
Sure.
Because I'm seeing a lot of this being labeled as bad. Parasocial relationship, just if you don't know what that is when you have a relationship with someone who you don't actually know. That can sound kind of creepy, but it's actually really normal in the internet age, because if you think about your favorite TikTokers or YouTubers or anyone and even TV characters, you develop a sort of social relationship with that person, even though you don't know them. I've been seeing a lot of people talk about how these are negative or inherently problematic. They are not. It's a normal and actually positive part of life right now. It's normal to get attached to your favorite TikTokers and YouTubers and feel like you have a kind of relationship with them. When it becomes problematic, and this is rare, is when you are sacrificing your in-person relationships for your parasocial relationships. I just wanted to say that because, yeah.
So you think there's always a hierarchy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know that we could argue that you necessarily need parasocial relationships, but you likely have them. But if you are sacrificing your in real life relationships for parasocial relationships, so you're not hanging out with your friends because you're
watching a live stream.
Yeah. Then that's a problem.
Because of the podcast, I have gotten to meet some of my parasocial relationships, some of my heroes. Huge mistake.
Oh,
many
wow.
times over.
No.
Yes, still love their work.
Yeah, but not.
But it was very strange. So, but my relationships with the writers, thinkers who I love are real and valuable to me.
Absolutely. Yep.
And it also changes the way that I interact with people who have found some of the work I've done valuable.
Right.
It's because I know that just because I don't know the specifics of their life yet doesn't mean that we don't have a relationship.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
If you're listening to my podcast or someone's listening to their podcast, we are building a relationship. We intentionally created something to connect with people, and they're connecting with it. We just haven't gotten to experience how that affected them or how they've been resonating with it or not resonating with it. And when they first make contact, when you send us a piece of mail, or send us mail, or reach out to us on Instagram or something. When we first make contact, for me, I've started to think about it as if they start off with, "Hey, I've loved your podcast," that means we already have a relationship.
Yeah.
They could have by this point listened to over 80 hours of me
and know a lot of like intimate details.
And know a lot about me, and maybe even have a lot in common with me if they like what I'm making. So. I've also noticed that myself towards the writers and people that I don't TikTok, but the people that I love as well. Mm-hmm. So, Reese, I love it. All things. Hello. You're welcome to call and interrupt the show right now if you would like. You can call us at 415-799-6653. My screen is mirrored, so if I got that wrong, just read along. And Reese, let's go to the next clip when you get it queued up. He is Octopus Man right now.
This is really embarrassing, but when I was in graduate school, I didn't really fit in with the cohort that I came in with, and graduate work is really isolating, and so all I had was my boyfriend, and I was super, super lonely. And somehow I got into writing fan fiction for the series Twilight on Tumblr. And I got pretty huge, actually, and had this whole community of friends, and we used to meet every single night from all around the world on the internet and hang out. And eventually my boyfriend had to kind of have an intervention because I wasn't sleeping, and this was all I was doing with my time. But I still miss those people because they were honestly like the best friends I've ever had.
Isn't that the Omegaverse? I tried to make you watch a video on Omegaverse.
I forgot.
Omegaverse.
What's that?
Yeah, I forgot what this is.
It's the Twilight fanfic.
Oh.
Yes, which 50 Shades of Grey came out of.
I did not know that.
It did?
Is
it Stephanie Myers? Is that her name?
50 Shades of Grey originally was Little Vampires.
Oh wow.
Right, yeah. I believe. I hope I'm getting that right.
Wait,
Put
so
it in the
did this
comments if I'm
person
wrong.
have to quit doing it? Is that
Yeah,
what they
this
said?
person got an intervention.
Oh. Aww.
I I think this is so important to talk about, though, because this is such a great, I mean, obviously it sounds like it got a little bit out of hand, but this is such a great way to connect with people when you can't change the circumstances that you're in. And so, you know, if you're in a city or you're in a town where you don't know a lot of people, one of the beautiful things about the internet is that you can find, one of the antidotes to loneliness is shared purpose. And so you can join a community where you have something in common and really do a lot to mitigate the loneliness. It just sounds like it got out of hand in this case.
I feel like the pandemic probably made things way worse for people too.
Yeah.
Fan fiction is such a beautiful art form though, as well, because
I don't know that much about it.
Well, you
Yeah,
can't
tell me.
monetize it.
You can't.
Not really. I mean,
are you not allowed to?
Not if you're using existing properties.
Oh.
Like if you're writing Harry Potter fan fiction, right? Like Disney owns that, I think, or DreamWorks. A big studio owns the rights to it. You're not going to ever be able to publish your. It's just like art for art's sake. It's like pumpkin carving.
So people just like read it online. It's not. You can't
Huge
just
dedicated communities. Oh,
Phone call.
Phone call.
Ding ding ding.
That ding dong is eventually going to be the Mogazar theme. But for now, hello, welcome to Shitty Life Advice. Who am I speaking to?
Hello, this is Marge.
Marge.
Hi, Marge.
Hello,
Marge, hello.
We missed you.
Oh, thanks.
Marge, what do you want to talk about on the loneliness episode of Shitty Life Advice?
Okay, so first note, I've hit a lot of the markers that MC was talking about, and I did not realize that I was as lonely as I am until I've connected the dots, where it manifested. Last week it was rage, and very dark depression the week before that, and it's been a cycle. But I wanted to call in because I reached out to Sam earlier this week, and I'm super lonely, and I just wanted to be held, and it was a moment for me to share with somebody. So I shared it with Sam that I've actually never been held or cuddled, and it's like I'm almost 31, so I compare myself a lot, but I also, like, deep down in my soul, it like rips me apart. And I know that I'm not the only one, and that there's a little bit of solace in that.
Yeah, Marge, how often are you hugging other people?
Not often.
Well, that's
not as much as I would like.
That's a form of contact that's also incredibly important. There obviously is some things to overcome with getting cuddled, but I assume that there's a way to make cuddling happen, even though it hasn't happened yet. And I hope that you get that experience. But also, hugging and hand-holding are things that you can ask for with the people in your life already. It's a way to get physical contact, and that contact will help you. I mean, MC can maybe explain why that's not a trivial thing to ask for in your connections.
Okay.
For sure.
Absolutely.
So hugging releases the opposite of stress hormones into your body, dopamine and oxytocin, which combat the stress response and tell your body that it's safe. And so you can hug. I hug everybody.
She's the best hugger.
I hug multiple times. I hang like the mailman, like anybody who I can in a totally platonic way. Like it doesn't have to be creepy.
Absolutely.
And it makes a huge difference in my work is very isolated. I see clients, but over Zoom. And so I'm almost never like in person with people. And so when I make physical contact a priority because I know it will make me feel safe. And it's, so highly encourage that. And if it feels awkward, just try to push through that. It's not.
And Marge, just as somebody who has privileged information about you, I know you and I care about you, because you're searching to try and feel less depressed and feel better on a day-to-day. It's really going to help with the diagnosing, with the therapy, because one of the things that happened with me is I got put on a bunch of antidepressive medications and stuff, and a ton of the symptoms went away actually when I just became a more social person and started hanging out with people more. And so were I to go to a therapist, which I do go to a therapist, when I go to a therapist every Monday, it's different now that I have regular contact with other humans back from when I was a solo artist making content in a cave going to therapies. I mean, it was agonizing before, and it's much easier now. There's no easy way to ask this, but how have you avoided physical intimacy? Because I'm sure it can't just be a physical thing. It's also probably part on you as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm afraid of connection. I have some slight abandonment issues, and I think I've tried to think that that's my control of just not letting anybody in. So then, if nobody's in, they can't leave. So
it's also when you're lonely, your system is going to learn, because you're in the state of stress and threat, that other people are a threat. And so you have to conquer that by pushing through and letting people in even a little bit.
Can I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
If you do you ever volunteer for anything? Volunteer your time?
No.
Because that might make a big difference. Because when people know that you're taking the time to hang out with them and do something productive, people are more likely to hug you because they're thankful for you taking the initiative and helping them.
There's some other volunteers in the chat.
Oh, is there?
Saying I recommend Krista, and Lindsay has scheduled her appointment so she could be with us today.
Oh, yay. We the other reason that that volunteering is so great is that that's one of the other ways out of loneliness is through service to others.
Yeah.
And that sounds really counterintuitive. But when you're providing service, you're getting away from this kind of hyper-vigilant obsession with yourself, which again comes naturally from the stress response. If you think about it, if you're alone, you have to be hypervigilant. And so if you can provide any kind of service to others, and that can be volunteering, that could be texting friends to check in, that could be any kind of thing, checking in with a coworker who you know is struggling on a project, all of those things will shift that focus and give your brain and body the cue that you're actually safe.
And
I've always believed that people need people.
Yes.
Yes. And Marge, you normally work with kids, right?
Yes. So I was going to say my job is very focused on helping others and tending to others and making sure that the kids are having fun and safe in a safe space. And so I think by the end of my week, I'm drained. As much as I love socializing, because I get, circling back to being an extrovert, I do thrive on the human connection, but sometimes if my mental capacity is not on its A game, then I just kind of spiral out of control. If that makes sense.
As your friend, I'm going to push back on you a little bit because I do also volunteer and I work with kids, and the interaction with kids is incredibly rewarding. However, if you're doing it 5 days a week, if you're doing it all the time, there are things missing from interactions with kids. You cannot express your loneliness while you're hanging out with a bunch of kids. You can't say, gee, you can't express your depression, right? So there is a mask that you have to wear. There's a part of yourself that you have to conceal when you work with kids that is missing. So to have a couple relationships at the pub in town or at the cafe in town that you see often, and to be able to say, when they say, hey, how are you? Instead of saying, oh, I'm fine, you could say, I've felt really lonely lately, actually. Sorry, I mean, if that's too much, but that's actually, you asked, and that's how I'm feeling. It might start to help you connect with humans in a way that you don't get to when you work with children.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We haven't talked about body pillows yet. Do you have a body pillow?
I do not.
No,
You might want to get one. They feel great. When you're laying in bed, if you put one behind your back, you can pretend like you're the little spoon.
I have a body pillow named Samantha, so it would never cause any jealousy with how much I prefer to spoon a body pillow.
Are you the big spoon or the little spoon?
I've liked both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you need another Samantha.
I need Samantha too.
A Miranda, like Miranda.
Marge, tell me if this is something that you're not willing to talk about, but what has happened in the times that you've had an opening to maybe invite somebody to cuddle or, have some sort of intimacy? What happened in those moments?
I have had very few of those moments, and I've also never felt comfortable enough to ask for that from somebody because I fear that they will just laugh in my face. So I really, to be honest, I have not done a lot of asking for that. So that's on me, right? I can't blame anybody else for that.
But it makes sense why you're not asking, right? So if you've got this feeling like you're not of value or someone's gonna laugh in your face, of course you're not going to. That makes total sense. One of the things you can do to combat that, and we can talk about it more directly in a minute, but a kind of related thing you can do to combat that is to try to reconnect with what brought you joy in a time of your life when you felt more connected. So if you had a hobby, and you can go all the way back to when you were 6 years old, like if you had a hobby of making friendship bracelets, getting re-engaged in something like that also connects you back with the idea that you have value.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
One of the things I notice digitally hanging out with you, Marge, too, is often when we connect and when we talk on the phone, you, without me prompting, feel like you're somehow a burden to me or not like I'm doing you a favor by hanging out, when in reality, I've just enjoyed having you in my life. I've enjoyed that you reach out when you're not feeling well. And, I'm obviously not a professional, so not to like pathologize you, but I would just say that I think that there's probably some beliefs that you hold on to that aren't necessarily reflections of the truth. Because when you say a statement like, "Oh, I'm sorry to have bothered you," or something like that, has never rung true for me, but I understand that in those moments it does feel true for you.
Go back and watch how excited we all were to hear your voice. Like truly.
That was very nice.
Yeah, we think you're great.
Thanks. I really appreciate that.
In your book club, we did the 4 agreements, and one of them is don't make assumptions. So you should not assume that you're a burden to other people, because if they're opening up their time and their space for you, then that's valid, and you are important.
Lindsay in the chat said that's kind of a thing that people with abandonment issues do. It's a hard mental framework to rewire out of. Yes, and hard does not equal impossible. Rewiring your brain is possible. You have to go to war with those limiting beliefs. Every time they come up, you're the boxer and you have to knock that shit out. It's possible. Yes.
Marge, do you want to just hang out with us while we listen to another audio clip, and you can? Oh, we're out.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, we're out of audio clips. Well, why don't you just hang out? And Marge, are you busy Monday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific?
I don't think so.
Okay, you should join our book club.
Yeah.
You should join the Hello Humans Hangout. That's like most of the people in the chat right now are from the crew, and we would.
Do I have to read the book?
No, we're not reading the book right now.
We're not reading books. This week we're working on our 2023 vision boards. And if you join our Patreon for any amount, this is the great secret of Hello Humans, is that it says that the monies does different things, but it's actually completely inclusive. So you'll get the same emails if you join for $1 as the people who pay $100 a month. And you'll get a Zoom link, and we hang out basically every week. Tracy
it's a great
is
community.
A staple there.
Yeah. I've met so many fun people. It's been awesome.
And we're doing my book next.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Thank you.
We're reading her book.
The first Tuesday after March 14th, the release date of the highly anticipated new book, Unbroken, The Trauma Response is Never Wrong. Did I get it right? Yeah, I never get subtitles, but I got it. That's the book that we'll be reading, and it's a very open and inclusive community, March, where as we read the book, I'll probably be talking about early experiences that impacted me and shaped me with coping strategies and behaviors that I'm not super stoked to have. And it would be a very safe place for you to open up as well. It's like 12 lovely humans. It's just really great.
It really helped during the pandemic too.
Yeah, I think that's where we...
Yeah, I'm sure.
It was awesome.
Okay, well, and please know that you can always text me, Marge. I love you, and I'm so grateful that you're in my life, and I'm so grateful that you have 4 years away from self-harm. Did I get that correct? 4?
Yes, sir.
Yay.
And that must mean that I've known you for more than 4 years.
Yes, actually.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
Because that was not the case when we first met.
Yay.
Yeah. So you're a gift to me. I hope you know that.
Thank you.
And that looks like we're getting pretty close to the end here. Obviously, Marge, you can text me after the show. we can keep talking as long as you want. Thanks for calling in. Really vulnerable.
Have a great day, everybody.
Really vulnerable to share what you shared, and I'm just so grateful because I know that you're not alone. I know that there's other people who are in the same place that you are, and it's a gift to everyone who feels that way to have shared. Thank you, Marge. And okay, now it's time for our come down. The come down segment is actually going to be changing to the prescription segment at some point. So thank you for joining us on our live stream. If you are feeling lonely, we are going to leave you with a prescription from our very own doctor. Keep in mind, we are not your doctor, so it is always best to consult your professionals as well. But if you would like just an assignment to do, helpful tips to help you with loneliness, here is the final message from our in-house doctor, MC McDonald, author of the highly anticipated new book on March 14th, Unbroken.
The trauma response is never wrong. I have 4 things I want you to do. Number 1, connect with what used to bring you joy. Go back to age 6. You have had something in your life that you loved. I don't care how small it was. I don't care how weird it was. Reconnect with it and start doing it again. Number 2, try to fill out a sheet that has concentric circles on it with a couple of different connections. So people that you have in your inner circle, people who are acquaintances, maybe you know a little bit, and then go all the way out. Try to fill those out. Having that piece of paper up will help you see that you actually know and connect with more people than you think. Number 3, work on your relationship with yourself. 2 things here. You can facilitate this with deliberate solitude. So I want you to journal. If you can have a daily journaling practice, even if it's just a paragraph or a couple of sentences. And the second thing is to express gratitude in some way. That can be either in a list form, here are 3 things at the end of the day I'm grateful for, or you can text your friends that you're grateful for and tell them why. And 4, try to think about serving others in some way every day. So that could be, again, connecting with a coworker that you know is struggling, reaching out to a friend who you know is having a hard time or going through a breakup, or it could be volunteering or doing service on a larger level. Try those 4 things and see what happens.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and thank you for joining us.